Welcome back. So today, we're taking a look at one of philosophy's most famous arguments, and we're going to make the case that it's not just wrong, it's a trap. We're going to use a framework that pretty much turns the whole thing completely on its head.
All right, let's just get right into it. Is believing in God a smart bet? I mean, for centuries, people have wrestled with this, right? But there's one particular answer, one attempt to solve it with just cold, hard logic and probability that has really stuck around.
And this right here, this is the core of Pascal's wager. He's basically saying, look, it's a simple choice. Bet that God exists. If you're right, you get everything, an eternity of paradise. If you're wrong, what have you really lost? A few hours on a Sunday morning? I mean, when you put it like that, it sounds like the easiest decision in the world, doesn't it?
But what if that's the whole problem? What if the game itself, the very way he framed it, is a trap? A trap designed to make you look one way, while the real prize is somewhere else entirely. See, today we're going to break down Pascal's wager using a framework called Absolute Divine Governance, or ADG. And this framework doesn't just say the wager is flawed, it says it's a perfect example of something called a rational thinking trap.
So here's how we're going to do it. First, we'll cover Pascal's bet. Then, we'll introduce this idea of a rational thinking trap. We'll look at the error of the gamble, the miscalculation of loss, and a totally different view of the afterlife. And finally, we'll get to what this framework says is the only safe bet.
Okay, first up, Pascal's famous bet. It's really important to get this straight. Pascal wasn't trying to prove God exists, not at all. He was making a practical argument that believing is simply the most logical, the smartest choice you can make.
So he literally laid it out like a spreadsheet, a payoff matrix. Just look at this. On that top row, if you bet on God and you're right, boom, infinite gain. If you're wrong, a tiny, finite loss. But check out that bottom row. If you bet against God, the risk is infinite, catastrophic loss. For what? A pretty small gain if you're right. So Pascal's whole point was, any logical person, any good gambler has to take the bet with the infinite upside. It's just simple math.
Okay, now this is where things get really interesting, because the ADG framework comes in and says, hold on a second. That logic, as clean and simple as it looks on paper, it's totally fundamentally wrong. The argument is that Pascal was using the wrong tool for the job. He was using the wrong kind of thinking.
AG draws this really sharp line in the sand. On one side, you have rational thinking. This is your everyday problem solving. It's about efficiency, processing data, asking how can we do this faster. On the other side, you have governance thinking. This is completely different. It's about purpose, about what we should become. It asks, does this actually align with the whole point of the system? The ADG argument is that when you're dealing with the huge questions of life, rational thinking just can't get you there. It's like trying to measure love with a ruler.
So where does Pascal go wrong? Well, the ADG model says his whole argument is built on this concept it calls as-sidduq, or surface truthfulness. I love the analogy they use. It's like the husk or the peel of an orange. Yeah, it's a real thing. It's factually correct that it's there. But if you stop there, you think you understand the orange? No way. You've completely missed the actual content, the whole point.
So if Pascal's wager is just the husk, what's inside? Well, governance thinking says you have to look past that husk to find what's called al-haq, the governance truth. This is the juice. This is the real essence of the matter, the underlying operational reality that the surface facts are just a container for.
And this distinction between the husk and the juice, it leads us right to Pascal's first massive error, at least according to this framework. He completely, totally misunderstood the kind of game he was even playing. See, Pascal treated God, or what ADG calls the absolute governor, like some kind of cosmic casino boss who rewards a passive bet. But in the ADG framework, the universe isn't a casino at all. It's more like a personalized incubator for your soul. They call it a NAF-centric universe, custom-built for your cognitive essence, your NAFs. The whole point isn't to win a bet, it's to develop, it's to grow.
And this changes everything about what belief means. In this model, belief, or iman, has nothing to do with placing a bet. It's an active state you achieve. Think of it like getting your computer system fully secure by running all the right protocols. It's about aligning your own consciousness with the operating system of the universe to achieve a state of security.
So this is absolutely crucial. The real objective isn't to get a ticket to heaven for after you die. The whole point of this existence, this reality incubator, is your own development. And it's not for later, it's for right now.
And there's actually a metric for success in this game. It's called your Cognitive Development Coefficient, or CDEV for short. Think of it as your score.
It measures your actual growth, how aligned you are with the system's purpose. And here's the kicker. Just making a passive bet like Pascal suggests, it does literally nothing to increase your CDEV. It doesn't move the needle at all.
Okay, let's move on to the next major flaw, because this all builds on itself. Remember how Pascal said the atheist, the non-believer, loses nothing if they turn out to be wrong?
Well, the ADG model says that's one of the biggest miscalculations in the whole wager. It completely refutes that idea by redefining what loss even is. In this system, loss, or khusar, isn't some risk you face in the future. It's a state you are in right now. It's a present tense failure of development.
So what does that mean, present tense loss? Well, it's all about wasted potential. It's having the owner's manual for reality, what ADG calls the governance manual, the Quran, and just leaving it on the shelf. Because you're ignoring it, you're failing to build the cognitive structures, the mental frameworks you need to operate correctly. You're giving into your own internal static and bias. The real loss isn't some future punishment. It's missing out on a mind-blowing 1000% acceleration in essence evolution that's available to you right now. It's happening every single second you're not actively developing.
All right, this brings us to the third and final major error in Pascal's thinking, and it's a big one. It's his incredibly simple black and white view of the afterlife. You know, you either get a ticket to heaven or a ticket to hell.
The ADG model presents something way more complex, more like a state transition based on the final version of your internal OS. It's a direct consequence of your cognitive state. So look at this. If your OS is fully upgraded and you've mastered the protocols, you transition to a state of continuous development, al-firdas. If you kind of believed but were lazy and didn't really get competent, you go to remedial learning, al-hisab. And if your OS has kernel-level corruption, if it's fundamentally broken, you end up in a quarantine loop, totally disconnected, a state of resonant dissonance called Jahannam.
So, okay, if Pascal's wager is a trap, if it gets the goal wrong, the loss wrong, and the outcome wrong, then what's the right move? What's the only truly safe bet?
The conclusion here is a complete 180 from where Pascal started. It's not about betting on God to get some afterlife insurance. It's about ceding authority to the system, to the sovereign manual. Why? To let it upgrade your internal operating system right now. The goal is to become what it calls a secured agent in the present, not a lottery winner in the future.
And this brings us right back to our original analogy. It's the perfect summary. Pascal's wager, that's the husk. It's focused on the surface-level idea of safety through a passive bet. But the ATG protocol, that's the juice. It's about seeking the deep governance truth of actual cognitive evolution through active hard work.
So ultimately, this framework leaves us with a completely different question. It's not, what should I believe? It's, how do I upgrade my OS? And maybe that's the real wager. Not a bet on some external entity, but a bet on our own incredible capacity for internal transformation, for growth, for evolution.